Perfect. Good evening, everybody. Welcome. I hope you can hear me okay. I am outside right now because I'm at one of our watch parties where people just to the right of me are preparing different materials for our upcoming actions here on International Workers' Day, which is in a couple of days. But just to introduce myself, my name is Niusha. I am the General Secretary of ILPS-US, and I'm going to be one of your MCs for tonight's program, and I'll invite Rhonda on as well.
Hello, everyone. I'm Rhonda. I'm also with the ILPS-US Steering Committee, and I'm currently the chair of ILPS-US. So excited to be here with y'all and looking forward to being with some of you in the streets on May Day. Pass it back to you, Nisha.
Okay, how exciting. I'm gonna adjust because the watch party here is gonna come join me. So I'm gonna bring them over here. But um yes, okay. So here we are, everyone. I'm gonna go 1 second.
All right. Well, Nisha is getting settled, and we're very excited that there is a watch party in SoCal. Let me just start by inviting some of you or all of you to, in the chat, let us know why you're here. When you heard there was an online rally on the 100th day of Trump being in office, and a call out for all out for May Day. What brought you here? What are the struggles that you're involved in? Why did you feel it was important to come to an online rally like this? We're really excited because we have such an amazing lineup of speakers who have been waging the struggle, not only for the past 100 days of Trump being in office, but for much longer. And they're going to continue it going forward beyond May Day, probably beyond Trump being in office, right? So we're excited to bring everybody here together to talk about the struggles and then talk about our resistance. So yeah, please use the chat to share with us why you're here. And I'll pass it back over to Yusha.
Sorry about that, y'all. The exciting chaos of the movement in action. So yeah, to build on what Rhonda said, while folks in the chat are sharing why they came, we wanted to share a little bit of the context for why we are convening this event today and why we're all coming together. As folks might be aware, tomorrow, April 30th, marks 100 days since Trump and the most anti-people faction of the ruling class, represented by the Republicans, took power again in the US. And for 100 days, the Trump regime has unleashed all forms of attacks against the people in order to advance its objective of consolidating its economic and political power and to increase its capacity to exploit the masses, right? The masses of working people in this country and all around the world. But amidst all of those attacks, for 100 days and even earlier on for the long history, the people have not simply been sitting back and allowing these attacks to happen, but in fact, they've taken on the just task of elevating their fights, of opposing these attacks, and asserting and exerting every effort to change their situation for the better. And so in this period, in this moment, we see a heightening of the crisis caused by the imperialist system and rising fascism here in the US and abroad. And despite that, though, we see a rising militancy of workers and other people's struggles. Just to paint a picture, amidst all of this crisis, the people are taking all manner of action and all forms of resistance, fighting to adjust their conditions, fighting to confront the rotten system, with pro-people and anti-imperialist forces advancing campaigns around the pressing issues facing their communities. Around the world, we see that national liberation movements are boldly fighting imperialist domination of their homelands, and their overseas counterparts in the US are exerting every effort to organize their own communities. We see that students across the country are combating unprecedented repression and fighting for quality and affordable education, fighting for reasonable working conditions, fighting for better housing. I will slow down. we also see that there is a growing movement opposed to imperialist war. And of course, we know that migrant communities are defending themselves against the most brutal attacks by the state and displacement from their homes. And some of those at the forefront are the workers who are struggling in their workplace against exploitative conditions and harassment by big business owners and their cronies. And so not only does tomorrow mark the 100 days of Trump, but just the day after, May 1st, is May Day, or International Workers' Day. Now, May Day has been significant since it started as a day commemorating the historic and ongoing struggle of working people against this rotten system. And it has often been a major day of mobilization for the working class around the world. But beyond the general significance of May Day, because of the coincidence with the 100 days of the Trump fascist regime, we know that this particular May Day is especially significant. This May Day brings together all of those fights that we were just mentioning and that we will be talking about today, and shows the broad unity of the people who are decisive to have a just and free world. We know that fascism is not an abstract thing, but is a response of decaying imperialism. And while it attacks all people, it directs its harshest blows against the workers. And so as such, the workers, wherever they exist, are at the core of the anti-fascist and anti-imperialist struggle, because their battle is against monopoly capitalism itself. Their battle for their livelihood strikes at the root of the system and its crisis. And so today we hope to show just a glimpse of the range of struggles and fights that are happening and the ways that they can come together. And we hope that all of you also share today via the chat, and even moving forward in your own communities, show the unity of these struggles. So that's just a little bit of a high level introduction, but I'll pass it on to Rhonda now.
Thanks, Yusha. So part of what ILPS-US is doing in response to this heightening of the crisis has been our launching of two campaigns, and we see them as very much related. The first one, maybe many of you are familiar with. We call it Defend People's Struggle. So in the context of this rising fascism in the United States and around the world, as the US state is becoming more desperate to cling to power, that repression has come down hard on working people, on national liberation struggles, on social justice, struggles for social justice around the world. The struggles of migrants and workers and women are feeling the brunt of that. But we also see people waging struggle, and we saw the need to ensure that we are bringing those fights to continue struggle together and defend the right to continue fighting. And that was the launch of our Defend People's Struggle campaign a couple of years ago. At the same time, as Nisha said, we have the heightening of the economic crisis, and we see that the repression isn't happening in the vacuum, but it's happening in the midst of this intensifying economic crisis, more crackdowns on workers, more attacks on the ability of people to live a decent life. And so we saw the need to launch another campaign so that we are actually showing how these issues of repression and economic crisis are not unrelated, but are actually very much related, and that because of the crisis, you have the fascist attacks coming down. And so the International League of People Struggle US chapter launched our People Over Profit campaign earlier this year, where we want to encourage our members to get out there and be among the masses who are fighting against the problems that are showing up because of the economic crisis. This includes things like housing and houselessness. It includes things like not having a living wage. It includes things like the privatization of our education, includes the inability of migrants on particular visas to be able to stay in the country, or even citizens to be able to stay in this country. And so We are waging the two campaigns together, and we hope to continue to wage these campaigns with you. We'll talk a little bit later on in the webinar about how you can get involved and how you can also join the campaigns with us. But with that, we actually want to start inviting our speakers to come online and to talk about their struggles, because those struggles are the embodiment of the campaigns and the embodiment of people fighting back. It's been not only 100 days of Trump, but the 100 days of struggle. Um, so with that, we thought, what better way to kick off our rally tonight than with a worker who has been part of a struggle in a very prominent union struggle, the Starbucks Workers United, fighting against a corporation which has been brutal in attacking its workers' organizing attempts in the midst of them recognizing the need to fight for what's right in the workplace. So with that, I'd like to invite Diego from Starbucks Workers United to speak. Diego, you have the floor.
Hey everybody. Name's Diego Franco, he, him pronouns. I have been with the campaign for a little bit less than a year, but in that time, I think, having the opportunity to speak to all of you is kind of testament to that. To show a pretty militant attitude to what it means to organize not just workers, but then to get that message out there. The the biggest driving cause for getting people to organize right now is the rising cost of living. You know, when billionaires and these multi-billion-dollar corporations look to take however much money they can to meet their profit margins, it is up to us to, stand together, to reach out to the people who have yet to join and get them organized. So Starbucks Workers United um, has been on that kind of process of organizing from the ground up and reaching new stores mainly through worker to worker organizing. So uh, just in the short amount of time that I've been a part of it, I know the campaign has grown by like at least over 100 stores in just that short amount of time. So month by month, we keep adding onto that number. And, we all share very similar demands of what we want in our workplace. We want to be treated with respect, to be guaranteed safety, and to be paid more. Our CEO has been making 800,000 a day. He's only been here 4 months. The guy's made 96 million in 4 months. My mind cannot comprehend what 96 million of anything looks like. So I could only imagine how little we are as workers are getting in that deal. So that's what I'm saying. It's 96 million. Um, when things seem so crazy and undefeatable, it takes all of us, working together and slowly chipping away at that gigantic beast, or whatever metaphor you want to use. Back in December, 5,000 union baristas went on strike. And that caused a ripple effect because that was just the beginning of what we have planned. So please look out for any information that you either related to the campaign as a whole. Maybe look up if there's a shop that has been unionized close by to where you live. I think it is important to, show people that there is an alternative, to what we think is the day to day of what it means to work where we work. We have the ability to make it better. It's just a matter of getting a hold of each one another. So, Um, as the union grows, I think so do the tactics in which we choose to involve ourselves in. Just last back in March 13th, I got to be a part of a group that engaged in some nonviolent civil disobedience, and that had happened a day before the company's investment meeting. So, if I'm willing to get arrested for this, obviously I gotta believe in what we're fighting for. And I think, it takes the individuals who are so passionate and wanting to reach out and be militant to get other people involved, because we cannot fight this just on ourselves, not just with the people on this call. I hope after hearing me speak, you guys are able to go and reach out to either your coworkers or to your friends and share the information that you learned. So I appreciate having this time, and thank you. I yield the rest of it.
Thank you so much, Diego. And I couldn't have said it better myself. I hope folks see the importance of bringing more people together and organizing more people. I wanted to dwell on that number that Diego shared just for a second. I know people in the chat, people in attendance today were commenting on it, but it's just mind-boggling to me the amount that this one CEO makes. That's over 7,000 times the amount that an average worker in the US makes in a day. It's absolutely absurd, right? Amidst a time when people are struggling to afford housing, to afford food for their families, and the system exists where someone can make such an exorbitant amount. Um, but thank you so much, Diego. I think the point that you ended on is really important, though, right? I think in the context of the Starbucks Workers United struggle, we're seeing that the workers are actually responding to the situation by getting more organized, by bringing more people together and growing every single day, right? And we know that as more people organize, of course, these big corporations will try more and more to harass people, to scare them, to intimidate them. But then the only solution is to organize even stronger, and to assert your right to continue to organize. So thank you so much, Diego. Um, but while there are workers like the Starbucks workers who are organizing in their workplaces, I want to introduce our next speaker, who is going to share that this is not just impacting workers as a whole, but the current system is also impacting young workers and youth. Um, and so our next speaker, the student from the Student Labor Advocacy Project, will be sharing about how student workers at UCLA are organizing as well, how they're connecting up with other workers on the campus, and how they are tying their fight to the calls for affordable housing and better living conditions as well. So welcome on, Asia.
Hi, everyone. Um, my name is Asiya. I'm a part of SLAP, or the Student Labor Advocacy Project. And just a little bit about us, we're an anti-imperialist organization of students and student workers who are fighting to improve the working and living conditions of all UCLA employees. We're also a proud member of ILPS in SoCal. Yeah, and I'm just really honored to be here alongside so many strong and inspiring mass organizations that are fighting for the liberation of workers, of migrants, and of all oppressed and exploited people. So at UCLA, SLAP has been waging several campaigns, one being to organize student workers to fight against their employer, the University of California, and win fair working conditions. Um, yeah. Especially during their contract fight, we also mobilize to uplift and support the critical ongoing struggles of campus workers for livable wages, affordable healthcare, proper staffing, and an end to anti-worker and anti-union repression. The UC is one of California's biggest employers, and it's actually the California's single largest landlord too. And despite its ever-growing profits and its $180 billion investment portfolio, campus workers are barely paid above minimum wage. They're intentionally short-staffed, and they suffer frequent injury on the job due to extreme workloads. And as a student worker, I also experience chronic pain due to the job that I work. As UC students that have seen our tuition hike every other year, our key services cut, our rent at record heights, and our right to resist squandered at every turn, we know that the students and workers on our campus will always be united by our common enemy, the profit-hungry UC system that plunders and attacks our people. But even more importantly, we also know that we're united by our common interest, which is the end of US imperialism and the creation of a world that actually puts people over profit. So in our student worker organizing campaign, we've built relationships with student workers across 14 campus workplaces, from dining halls to campus stores and libraries. And we've been painstakingly outreaching within new workplaces and building with our coworkers to learn the issues that they're experiencing. And most importantly, to show them that actually it's possible to change these conditions. And what it's going to take is collective action and mass struggle. So we've been organizing workplace committees and mobilizing dozens of student workers to actually directly confront their employer and to present their demands. And yeah, we're really in the midst of it. And what we know is that we're not going to stop organizing until all of the demands of student workers are met, because this fight is really urgent. Um, we have student workers working multiple jobs, maxing out their hours just so that they can attend this university, and just so they can afford to live. Yeah, and also, in a exciting development, SLAP is taking up new efforts to also directly organize our full-time campus workers, career workers, and really organize them around people fighting for people over profit. So we're going directly to workplaces and areas where campus workers congregate. We're building relationships and hearing about the issues that they want to change. Um, this is a wide range of things, right? From like direct workplace issues, but also to things like family separation, as a lot of workers on campus are migrants who, yeah, were really displaced and therefore thousands of miles away from their families, or it's the high cost of living in LA. Yeah, and what we're doing is seeing what fights can be taken up to solve these problems and how we can link up with campus workers to organize, not only just to improve their immediate conditions, but actually to solve this problem at its root and to fight for the end of all exploitation and oppression, which really means the end of imperialism. And yeah, tying it all together, organizing student workers, organizing career workers, we're also trying to bring this organizing together and bring these groups together. Um, yeah, and so especially as our campus workers are fighting for a union contract and fighting via strikes, we've been mobilizing students and student workers in the hundreds to join the worker strikes and uplift their union fight. And we're actually going to be doing that in 2 days on May Day, when our campus workers across the state are going to be on strike against the unfair labor practices of the university. So we're going to be calling on all UCLA students and student workers to stand in solidarity with campus workers who are running this university, to uplift the international movement of workers and to walk out of class to join the strike, knowing that we're really in one fight. And especially today, 100 days into the Trump presidency, we're more agitated than ever and more ready than ever to continue to build both the militant workers movement and also the militant student movement, to activate the widest range of people who are all suffering, because we really are all suffering under this economic crisis, and to come together and to fight to create a world where workers, youth, and students and all other sectors of people around the world can really thrive.
Yeah, thank you so much, Asia. That was such an amazing example of the way you're building unity on campus between workers and students and workers in different places doing different kinds of work, different industries, and then students of different walks of life, right? Coming together to show their solidarity with one another and with the struggles of the workers on campus, and then linking that to the broader system of imperialism, which is at the root of it all and can unite all of us in these fights together. Thank you so much. For our next speaker, I think it's a really great transition between Asia to, I'd like to invite Erica with the Students for International Labor Solidarity, who will talk more about that link between youth on campus, fighting to improve conditions on campus, to fighting to improve the lives of workers and students at the campus, to solidarity with workers around the world fighting against highly exploitative conditions. So, Erica, I'd like to give you the floor.
Hi, thank you so much. Thank you to Sia for the work you do at SLAP. As a student worker myself, I'm really appreciative of that. So, hello everyone. I'm Erica. I'm a third-year student here at UC Berkeley. I'm a representative for Students for International Labor Solidarity, which is a nationwide organization that mobilizes college students across the country to support workers' struggles around the world and on our own campuses. So first off, an overview of SILS. We as an organization are built on the historic work of students and union allies that hold universities and their Pearl brand business partners accountable for ensuring workers' rights, and at these factories that make university logo apparel. SILS aims to ensure a more binding labor rights obligations in university code of conducts and to make sure they're enforced, and at the same time support the struggles of campus workers for union recognition and better wages and conditions of work. We are first and foremost student-led, and we have a pretty wide support committee of US and international unions, including SEIU, Workers United, UFCW, USW, and unions in Bangladesh, Cambodia, Honduras, El Salvador, Thailand, and India. So right now, our current campaign is advocating for the workers of the Hong Seng Knitting Factory in Thailand. During the pandemic back in May 2020, workers at the Nike supplier of Hong Seng Knitting Factory in Bangkok, Thailand, were suddenly suspended due to the low production from the pandemic. So Thai law requires that the workers can be suspended due to low production and to make sure they receive a certain amount of severance pay so they can still take care of themselves and their family. But instead of paying the severance pay to the workers, factory management forced workers to sign forms saying they were giving up the severance pay, which Thai federal law has ruled as illegal. And when workers spoke up about it, management used abusive intimidation tactics, including threats to the significant number of Burmese migrant workers and just overall intimidation tactics. The forms were also only in Thai, so the migrant workers were at a disadvantage automatically. One Burmese worker, Cha San-u, who we're trying to focus most of our campaign on, was forced to flee the country with his wife and infant son due to this immense pressure from the management. The Workers' Rights Consortium, also known as the WRC, which many of our campuses are affiliated with, especially UC Berkeley, they're supposed to monitor these Cal apparel factories, and they reported that Nike owes $900,000 in wages and accrued interest to these workers. It was initially $800,000 in wages, but because of the accrued interest and just these workers having to go to loan sharks and basically become in debt, it basically accrued to 900,000. The WRC sent this report to UC Berkeley and other Nike universities, such as the University of Pittsburgh, UT Austin, and recommended that they engage with Nike on this issue. And since that, over a year ago, UC Berkeley has stated explicitly that they have no current plans to cut the contract. And even despite Nike admitting to wage theft after 5 years of denial since this happened in 2020, they refused to pay the $900,000 in cash. They also still stand by the narrative that the workers voluntarily gave up their legally entitled severance pay. by signing those contracts that most of the people did not know they were signing in the first place. So with SILS, our goal is to use our student leverage to remediate labor rights issues by ensuring that Nike pays the full amount in cash and create accountability in the university contract and supply chain with pressuring our administration to cut the contract. So with this, we've just had our National Day of Action, which all the different campuses involved in SILS had this action going on. UC Berkeley had ours on our Cal Day, which is where we see the most amount of people, prospective students, parents. We threw a rally where we had with the theme, cut the contract, like what price are you willing to pay? And so with these actions, we are forming a big solidarity across the nation and supporting international workers. And we find it important that students stand in solidarity with these workers because it sets a precedent for what an ethical labor relationship should look like, which is one of support, resistance against corporate greed, and just achieving justice for all. The labor rights movement is not and should not be separate from student activism, and reflecting this requires solidarity between the resistant nature of workers and the privilege of student power. With this, we just like Slap had mentioned, there's a campus workers strike happening on May Day, so it's fully intended to be involved with that, and we fully support all the union strikes happening on May Day and with all the protests, especially with the Students Organizing for Liberation and the Palestinian Liberation Movement here on campus too. There's going to be a lot of actions happening on May Day itself on campus. And overall, SOCIALIST believes that the workers at the Hong Seng Knitting Factory deserve to be advocated for, deserve to be paid, and deserve to have dignity in the work they do. Because they're not trying to not have work, they're trying to just have pride and dignity in the work they do and especially get paid. So thank you to ILPS for this opportunity to speak, and thank you everyone for your time.
Thank you so much, Erica, for sharing that struggle and the unity and solidarity of students with workers around the world. I think it's really inspiring to see how the students on campus are like not only confronting your employers on campus, but also confronting your university as an institution that supports these corporate exploiters around the world, like Nike in Thailand, like Nike really kind of everywhere, and using the power and your abilities there on campus to put pressure where it needs to be put in order to be and show and express that solidarity in tangible ways. So thank you, Erica. We want to also bring to you all the fights that are not only happening on campuses, but also in the communities. So the next speaker that I'm going to invite up is with Gabriella LA, who will talk a bit more about the housing campaign that they have and the fight for housing in Los Angeles. If you're based in LA, you know what it means to have a housing crisis, right? So about the housing crisis and then how that also has related to the issues that migrants are facing right now in the current context of heightening economic struggle and heightening fascism in the community. So with that, I want to turn it over to Ina with Gabriella USA. I'm sorry, Gabriella Los Angeles.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ina. I'm an organizer with Gabriella Los Angeles, an organization fighting for the rights and welfare of Filipino women and children as part of the National Democratic Movement for Genuine Democracy and Liberation in the Philippines. As an organization that is based in Los Angeles, we are extremely familiar with how neoliberalism has impacted our communities, spawning a housing crisis that gentrifies and destroys poor migrant communities, evicts and displaces families and elders, and has forced tens of thousands of people to live out on the street every single day, where they face even further criminalization and state violence. Under neoliberalism, we see that housing is not a human right or even a public good or service. It's a commodity to buy and sell, to accumulate billions in profit, no matter what the human cost is. Here in Gabriella, LA, we've organized Filipino migrant workers, especially women workers, around the issue of housing dating back to the pandemic, where we fought alongside many tenants who were actually subject to illegal evictions and lockouts due to a loss of work and the inability to pay rent. And for Filipino migrants, this displacement out of their homes in a historic Filipino town where we're primarily based, and out of Los Angeles more largely, is certainly not their first time being displaced. Because first they're displaced from their homelands due to the lack of jobs and livelihood there under US imperialism, feudalism, and bureaucrat capitalism. But then they are displaced once again as they get to this country, unable to put together enough money for skyrocketing rents. It's the average cost of rent for a 1 bedroom in Los Angeles right now is something like $2,400. Um, and unable to pay this with the meager wages that they have been really exported for. Filipino women, who make up nearly 60% of all overseas Filipino migrant workers, face the brunt of this. And we've seen many remain in extremely exploitative workplaces to scrape together payment for rent, and even stay in unstable housing situations where they're exposed to violence, either from a partner or family member, or even from a landlord or property management, out of fear of being unable to afford to live anywhere else. In 2023, we began organizing with an encampment of over 20 homeless Filipinos who lived on Juanita Avenue in historic Filipino town. And actually, just after we met them, they were swept and forced into a motel operated under Mayor Karen Bass's Inside Safe program, where they were subject to harassment as well as jail-like living conditions, where they were subject to living with literally maggots, rats, and cockroaches. All the while, Karen Bass has been bragging every which way about the program. But by organizing together alongside other community organizations like GAB, the residents helped form the Housing for Juanita campaign to expose the reality of their conditions, as well as of the neglect that they were experiencing at the hands of both the US as well as the Philippine state, who, while they were suffering, continued to profit off of their labor and off of their remittances. And by fighting diligently, they actually were able to win relocation into actual housing, and many continue organizing today. But out of this campaign, we also developed a larger housing network to connect to other migrant Filipinos experiencing crisis, such as the North Lake Tenants, which is a boarding house of about a dozen migrant Filipino seniors, healthcare workers, and caregivers who were fighting back against their illegal evictions by a multi-millionaire landlord. By building support with the community and our people's organizations, together we actually beat every single one of their evictions in court, standing between the landlord and a multi-million-dollar windfall. And now fast forward to today, in 2025, we're seeing really these rising attacks on migrants by the Trump administration, as well as neglect from a Philippine government that, instead of protecting its migrants, has actually suggested that they just self-deport instead, saying that, oh, only 200,000 will be deported. But seeing and hearing all of this, we actually have folded our housing work into our larger Tango Migrante, or Defend Migrants campaign, recognizing that housing justice is just one aspect of the larger struggle that migrants are waging against the systems of capitalism and imperialism that are really at the root of the housing crisis. By building out this network and building with Filipino migrant workers wherever they are, whether that be at home, in the workplace, or even at church, we can really show that the strongest way to defend our migrant communities is not to go into hiding, but to actually boldly band together and to fight back. So as we mark 100 days of the Trump administration and commemorate May Day, a day to celebrate the resistance of working people all around the entire world, we continue to call on all migrants and all working peoples to stand up and fight back against these fascist attacks, and band together as part of a mass movement to really put people over profit. And really, from sweeps and evictions to detention and deportation, we truly must join together and struggle to demand an end to forced displacement, here and where it begins abroad, and really an end to imperialism altogether. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ina. That's 100% correct, right? Oh, I'm muted. Thank you so much, Ina. But that's 100% correct. Now more than ever, it's especially important for migrant communities all across this country to really come together and to unite their fights. Migrant workers face the impacts of this system in a wide myriad of ways. As Ina mentioned, they face extreme exploitation, especially at the hands of predatory employers who maximize their more vulnerable situation to further exploit them. But then they also face the open and direct attacks by the state. And as Ina mentioned, Many migrants are forced to leave their homelands due to the anti-imperialist or anti-people policies in their home countries, often promoted by the U.S., only to face further exploitation, displacement, and repression here in the U.S. And this is unfortunately a common experience among migrant communities. But as Ina mentioned, really in their struggles, they're able to bring together not just the fights around the day-to-day expressions of the economic crisis, but the direct fights confronting the state and the fascist attacks. And so to kind of share a little bit more about that, I want to pass it on to Howie to show the way that migrant communities locally are fighting against the continued expansion of state violence against migrants and how they're opposing that.
Thank you, Nisha, and thank you everyone for being here. And hello from the watch party. We have a good group here watching together. As the past speakers have pointed out, right now is a very intense time, a very scary time. And it's hard, even though we know the people that we're outreaching to are terrified, we have to figure out how to meet them, right? And figure out how to build community safety through those members of the community. And so this is, extremely important when, setting up safety and defense is to make sure you're building up from within your base, your neighbors, your family, your greater community. These people need to be looped in order to know what's going on in your neighborhood, from ICE raids to racist attacks. People need to be checking in, having meetings, and showing the safety of what it means to have community, showing numbers when our community is under attack, because it's possible to push the feds away, right? Through legal observation, one of our first patrols, federal agents were scared away because they knew that they were going to be breaking the law. The community came out to observe them. But as the Trump administration continues to crack down, these types of tactics will not continue to work. And the only thing that is a constant is that we will be building from within our communities, looping the people in that are being affected the most. And that is often taking the form of our neighbors, our family members, people that we are, in constant communication with. It's just up to us to tap in with them and engage them in the struggle. Because as the things we do, like filming police departments, or not police, federal agencies in their operations will become illegal. They've already gone away with needing a warrant to enter an immigrant's home. And so the way to create safety and community defense beyond just setting up patrols and times is making sure that we're building these movements, these defense coalitions, not from outside of the people that we organize, but through them, engaging them through every step of the way, and giving them the tools. Because when it comes down to it, it's not us that will, overthrow imperialism or fascism. It's going to be the people. It's going to be our communities, the masses. And so we need to, appeal to them and prove to them that through walking together and sharing information and teaching people their rights and showing people what to look out for ICE and giving people the resources to reach out when they see ICE. Without that core base of a community, there's not going to be much organization done. And so there is a lot going on, and a lot of people are very anxious, and rightfully so, especially as we continue to lose our rights. But it is only pushing the people closer together. And it is when the people are close together and organizing and tapped in, and we learn how to work with and talk with, then we can really set up safety. So if you're fighting to create a community self-defense in your area, not only should you reach out to other organizations to help you, but you need to be doing the outreach and the communication with your neighborhoods to make sure that you know who's coming in and who's being affected. And so through mass outreach and through also countless hours of member and cadre work, we've been able to set up a patrol system. But none of it would truly be possible without the information given in by the people in our communities. And so that is how we will overthrow Trump's fascism, and that's how we keep our communities safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Howie. If folks can hear the cheering from the SoCal Watch Party. No, thank you so much. You know, Howie made a good point, right? The importance really of building deeply within our communities, right? And amidst all of these attacks, as the US is beefing up its capacity to attack migrants and workers here in the US, it's also actually tapping into its networks internationally, especially places that are under colonial occupation and in collusion with various puppet states worldwide. And so in building up these fights, we need to build both deeply and widely, right? Deeply rooted in our communities, in every neighborhood, every street, every building, like Howie mentioned. But then we need to link up these deeply rooted fights to the broader struggle of migrants, both nationally and internationally. And really bringing the fights together, not just in this country, but building that type of mutual solidarity and joint struggle internationally as well. So I'm very happy to invite our next speakers, Cassandra from the International Migrants Alliance and Capybara Colectiva, as well as Jose, both of whom are active leaders in the migrant struggle. So take it away, y'all.
Yeah. Hi, y'all. Oh, nice. Thanks. I was gonna say, I was like, I shared a little link for a potential slideshow. Yeah, you can leave it there. That's perfect. So yeah, thanks for having me tonight on the call, y'all. My name is Cassandra, and I'm part of Capybara Colectiva and the International Migrants Alliance. So I want to share a little bit about IMA and Cappy, and then I'm really excited to invite Jose to share too. But IMA USA, it was actually one of the first country chapters of the International Migrants Alliance. And the International Migrants Alliance is one of the first global alliances that's actually led by grassroots migrants, refugees, and displaced people. And we have close to 200 organizations from over 35 countries around the world. And IMA USA has been waging a campaign called Defend Migrants, Organize Solidarity from the Border to Our Homelands since 2020, since the end of the first Trump administration. And we've organized border solidarity missions at sites from Mexico City to Texas, Arizona, California, to really bring grassroots solidarity to the struggles of forced migrants at the US-Mexico border, especially those who are like fleeing impacts of neoliberal policies, political persecution, imperialist war and militarism, and climate disasters in our homelands, which many folks have really been speaking to the process of forced migration. We've also waged campaigns for migrant seafarers who were trafficked, abused, and exploited on ships. And when they arrive at US ports along the West Coast, we've organized campaigns for their rights as migrant workers at sea, including Justice for AJ Mirenia and the Justice for United Six campaigns. And since the end of last year, we have been supporting asylum seekers abandoned across the United States in places like Chicago, New York, but particularly in Seattle, Washington area, where they were bused from Texas and other states to blue states and sanctuary cities in a cynical move by Republican Governor Greg Abbott. And others without any support or resources during their journey or at their destinations. And so IMA in the Pacific Northwest, where I'm located, we have a really strong network of grassroots support and campaigns. We've also supported the building of new grassroots organizations from migrants from Venezuela, the Congo, Angola, and other places to really assert their rights and demand the resources and support that they need to survive. Even as the Trump regime rose to power again and is really trying to reverse many of our hard-won fights. And in the image that you can see is actually migrants who marched with us and ILPS here in Washington State to basically denounce, to basically be like, fuck Trump, and to keep it short. And in fact, one of the migrant leaders that we really work with, she's actually on the call tonight. She introduced herself, Adriana, and she's also part of a grassroots organization that we've been really excited to get to know, support, and work with. And so I'm part of Capybara Colectiva, and we're a member organization of the International Migrants Alliance. We formed in 2022, and we've really been supporting a lot of the local efforts to support asylum seekers in Washington, including just supporting campaigns like the Justice for Jose campaign, which we'll share about briefly soon, and then like the Free Lelo, Free Auntie Lynn, Free Ate Michelle, and really free all migrants, and really calling and amplifying the call for shutting down the Northwest Detention Center, together with organizations like Comunidad Sin Fronteras, like Sin Mara, like La Resistencia, and including the local Tango Migrante network in the Filipino community. So this has looked a lot of different ways, including for over a year, we were working with Simara, a group of Venezuelan migrants, to really deliver culturally relevant food. We did this every Monday for over a year. We did 200 to 400 meals per week to different hotels and churches and even encampments where migrants were, which also at times included like political education. And so really Capybara has done a lot of work to uplift the Ema Washington campaign to defend migrants and asylum seekers. So yeah, the migrants who are on this call who have worked with us know that we've done city hall like protests where we go and speak, marches together, working together to really expose state neglect. Working together to really connect the dots around forced migration and the U.S. Intervention in their homelands. And really also now exposing even the collusion between our military base here in Washington, Joint Base Lewis McChord, and its collusion with like basically the mass deportation and detention that Trump is calling for. So really just as much as possible, just raising the calls of migrants and really exposing like the ways in which they're being attacked, and supporting that self-organizing within our community. So that's a bit about Ima and Capybara. I'm going to share a little bit about Jose before inviting him to speak with me. But I think to share about Jose, I'm actually going to switch to speaking in Spanish. So just a good reminder that if you need interpretation, make sure that you are on the English channel or you won't know what's happening. Ok, voy a empezar a hablar en español. Esta imagen aquí que están viendo es simplemente, tiene a Antilén, tiene a Lelo, y también tiene a Jorge, que es un joven venezolano. Entonces es nada más una imagen para enseñar todas las diferentes campañas que hemos estado apoyando. Pero si vamos a la próxima pantalla, pueden ver una imagen muy bonita que hizo un artista de José. Entonces sería la próxima slide. Sí, esa, gracias. Entonces, para compartir un poco de José antes de invitarlo a hablar conmigo, quiere decir que José es un migrante venezolano que conocimos aquí en el estado de Washington. Estoy muy agradecida de haber conocerlo. Y también conocimos a su familia, a su hermana, a sus hijos, y también a su cuñado y su sobrino, todos. Y la verdad es que José ayudaba mucho, y aunque si no hubiera hecho todas estas cosas, pero para de verdad como que traerle atención también, José ayudaba mucho con la distribución de comida que hacíamos. Entonces usualmente llevábamos comida a diferentes lugares y recibíamos mucho apoyo de diferentes migrantes ahí para distribuirla. Y José hacía eso. Y también José participaba mucho en nuestros eventos comunitarios. Entonces, hasta tengo una foto donde él ganó algo en una rifa y se ve muy feliz él, y estoy yo en el micrófono y está su hijo también gritando y nos vemos todos muy felices. Y también él, días antes de que fue detenido aquí en este estado, él marchó con nosotros en las calles. Entonces, para como que pintar una imagen de quién era José. Cuando José fue detenido, inmediatamente empezamos a trabajar con su familia para entender qué necesitaba, por qué lo habían detenido. Y esto fue durante los primeros 7 días que Trump se hizo presidente. Entonces, inmediatamente estábamos viendo la aumentación de detención y deportación. Um, Desafortunadamente, el juez aquí en el estado de Washington, um, como José había entrado al país por una segunda vez para estar reunido con su familia, determinaron que era como un crimen por el Departamento de Justicia. Entonces, él tuvo que pasar por ese proceso y también por el proceso de la migra, de ICE. Entonces a él lo mandaron para Texas, donde fue detenido esa vez. Eso fue lo que decidió un juez en Washington. Entonces eso fue muy triste. Lo tuvimos que decir adiós. Um, y mientras lo mandaron de Washington a Texas, no sabíamos muy bien dónde estaba José. Entonces, cuando empezamos esta campaña, al principio se llamaba Free José, Libera a José, porque queríamos su libertad, porque sabíamos que no tenían razones para tenerlo detenido, para separarlo de su familia y para llevárselo hasta Texas. Entonces, pasaron muchas semanas donde de verdad no siempre sabíamos dónde estaba José, porque lo estaban moviendo de prisión a prisión por todos los Estados Unidos hasta que llegara a Texas. Entonces, un proceso muy inhumano, la verdad. Cuando por fin llegó a Texas, nos pusimos en contacto con personas que conocíamos ahí, organizadores, para que pudieran ir a visitarlo, para que alguien pudiera ver a José y asegurarnos de que él estaba bien. La primera vez que alguien fue cuando José estaba en una hielera, se le dice, en El Paso, y no pudieron visitarlo, no lo dejaron tener visitas. La segunda vez ya ni estaba José. En este momento nos habíamos enterado por una llamada dentro de la hielera de otra persona que estaba detenida, que le hizo favor de llamar a la hermana de José y dejarla saber que a José lo habían movido a Guantánamo. Y en ese momento no habíamos oído de que iban a mover a personas a Guantánamo. Era como un rumor de que era algo que el presidente Trump quería hacer. Y en ese momento nos dimos cuenta de que José iba a ser parte del primer grupo que mandaron ahí. Y nadie nunca nos avisó. Fue otro migrante que le hizo el favor de avisarnos. Como 5 o 7 días después de esta llamada, salen las noticias públicas, la lista de nombres de las personas que han mandado a Guantánamo, y en esta lista sale el nombre de José. Y ahí sí fue como confirmamos dónde estaba. En ningún momento nos dejó saber el Departamento de Justicia ni la migra. Nunca comunicaron con la familia. Y de esa manera vemos que de verdad mover las personas de esa manera es como robarlos de su comunidad. Entonces, también esto fue muy inhumano. Entonces, la verdad es yo quería invitar a José a compartir. Por los que no saben, José ha pasado por muchas cosas. Y si no conoces mucho la base de Guantánamo, está en Cuba. Y la verdad es que los Estados Unidos están en Cuba ilegalmente usando ese espacio y lo están usando para detener a las personas y la verdad, mucho maltrato está pasando ahí. Entonces, nuestra campaña ha cambiado a Justicia para José porque por la presión de la comunidad y la lucha que hemos hecho, José fue deportado de Guantánamo a su país de origen. Entonces, es por eso que él ahora nos puede contar un poco de su historia. Entonces, bienvenido, José. Muchas gracias por estar aquí esta noche.
Buenas, buenas noches, Sandra. Buenas noches a todos. Buenas noches, Andrea. ¿Cómo estás?
Um,
Que Dios te bendiga mucho, Andrea, ¿vio? Bueno, Sandra, aquí estoy para contarle lo que pasó por allá y eso, y le di gracias a Dios que Dios me tiene vivo y lo que pasó por allá, y bueno,
sí,
no solo eso,
José,
no
creo
solo
que, um, y muy agradecida de que estés aquí en la llamada con nosotros. Um, Tal vez les
Sandra
puedes
está
contar a
lejos
las
de que te
personas,
quiere.
sí, tal vez les puedes contar a las personas un poquito sobre si tú sabías que te iban a mandar a Guantánamo.
No, no sabía, no, yo pensaba porque a mí me dijeron o se me vino a recoger todo, yo creo que la más libertad cuando yo veo que me sacan para afuera, me montan en un autobús me montaron en un avión de guardia y llegué en Guantánamo. En Guantánamo llegué, me quitaron la ropa y eso, nos fueron para la cárcel, ¿cómo le explico? Para la cárcel de Cuba. Y ahí me encerraron un cuartico, no me bañaba, no comía bien, todos los días me la pasaba llorando por mi familia, porque no sabía nada de mí. Aguanté mucho coñazo, me dieron mucho coñazo y me dieron mucho golpe. No se lo deseo a nadie. Ya yo estaba que me ahorcaba ahí y no lo hice porque pensé en mi familia y eso. Y botaba sangre, tenía la espalda marcada de puro coñazo y me daban duro allá. Y fue duro lo que yo pasé, Ale, fue duro lo que yo pasé y eso.
Sí, eso es muy horrible porque luchaste, yo sé, muy duro para traer a tu familia a los Estados Unidos y ser tratado de una manera que te haga hasta querer quitarte la vida para sobrevivir. Eso es horrible y nadie se lo merece, ningún ser humano, la verdad.
Y Sandra, como yo le digo, yo me fui para allá para buscar un buen futuro a mi familia, a mi hermana, a mi mamá, y un buen futuro para mí porque yo no sabía que me iba a tocar eso. Y, y soy un carajito sano, me gusta trabajar, me gusta luchar, y bueno, para adelante. Y Dios me dio una oportunidad en Estados Unidos, compartí con usted, compartí con Andrea, y le di gracias a Andrea por todo, que conviví con ella bonito y hermoso. Y estoy agradecido por todo, pero no me gustaron cuando me atraparon. No me esperaba eso, pues, ese momento, pues, no me lo esperaba, no me lo esperaba. Y de ahí me llevaron de cárcel para llegar yo a la frontera de México. Y de ahí yo estaba en migración, todos los días llamaba a mi familia, a mi hermanita que se ama la vida, a todito pues se ama la vida. Y después un día que me pararon a las 3 de la mañana, y yo con una alegría pensaba que iba otra vez donde mi hermana y estar con mi familia otra vez, pero eh, Dios me quitó la oportunidad de estar con mi familia, me llevaron para otro lado que no me gustó. Y como le digo, no se lo deseo a nadie.
No, sí, la verdad es que es demasiado injusto y creo que es algo que estamos muy agradecidos de que podemos conocerte y luchar contigo para pedir justicia, no solamente para ti, pero también para tu familia. Porque sabemos que primero no es fácil compartir tu historia, pero también, aunque ahora has sido deportado y estás libre, todavía tienes que luchar muchísimo, todavía tienes que liderar con todo lo que experimentaste y aparte todavía sí que separado de mucho de tu familia. Y eso también es muy injusto.
Sí, yo le di
Y-
gracias a mi mamá, yo le di gracias a mi mamá, que mi mamá me estaba curando y gracias a Dios que mi mamá me recibió con el corazón alegre, una alegría cuando me vio, pero me vio súper morado, me decía, hijo, y me llevaban, ¿cómo le digo? Una silla de ruedas para la casa porque yo tenía la nalga roja, tenía un dolor, Sandra, que no podía, Sandra, me volaron la uña, no, me hicieron muchas cosas, Sandra, me partía acá, me dejaron el ojo hinchado, la cabeza todos los días me duele, la columna no lo aguanto, pues.
Sí, y por los que están en esta llamada y no saben, también estamos muy agradecidos con la mamá de José, porque la verdad es que ella fue quien nos ayudó a asegurar de que ella viajó muchas horas para llegar a donde estaba José después de que fue deportado a Venezuela,
También.
a recogerlo. Y también asegurar de que podía ir a un lugar seguro fuera del país, porque José no puede regresar a su país de origen porque no es seguro para él. Entonces, mamá ayudó mucho en llevarlo a un lugar seguro, a quedarse con él y cuidarlo. Y la mamá de José se llama Gladys. La
Amén,
señora
Sandra,
Gladys no
yo
pudo estar en la llamada hoy, pero quiero compartir un poquito de lo que compartió tu mamá la última vez que hablamos. Y ella dijo que primero que estaba muy agradecida, pero también ella puso la llamada de que ella de verdad no nada más solo pido por su hijo, pero también por todos que están pasando por esto por allá, porque ella todavía tiene familia aquí. Ella sabe que hay jóvenes que los están llevando a El Salvador que necesitan ayuda, y que ella puede imaginarse a estar en un lugar de esas familias porque es triste, porque ella de verdad también lo ha vivido con su propio hijo, ha visto eso y ninguna mamá debería de ver a su hijo en ese estado. ¿José todavía está en la llamada o se salió? Es posible que se cortó la llamada porque también vi que tenía mala conexión. No sé si otras personas lo pueden ver y me pueden confirmar en el chat.
It looks like Jose is still here, but his audio is not connected.
Oh, no. Ok. Creo que lo que yo puedo hacer mientras es compartir la manera en que Ima y Capibara estamos siguiendo esta campaña. Entonces, lo que puedo decir es que Ima y Capibara todavía estamos, y también con el apoyo de ILPS, estamos siguiendo esta campaña a nivel no solamente nacional, pero también internacional para pedir justicia para José. Estamos de verdad luchando y intentando de prevenir que este tratamiento inhumano que hemos visto no pase otra vez. Entonces, este esfuerzo está de verdad liderado de organizaciones de base y trabajadores inmigrantes para de verdad atacar a la administración de Trump y los ataques fascistas que estamos viendo contra migrantes. Entonces, IMA-USA de Estados Unidos ha estado también coordinando con IMA en Latinoamérica para de verdad apoyar a la campaña, pero también conectar a José con recursos allá donde él está. Especialmente también estamos conectando con IMA Latinoamérica para también conectar con otras personas que conocemos, porque muchos a quien trabajamos con el último año han sido detenidos en el centro de detención aquí en Washington y después han sido deportados en condiciones horribles. Unos sin comer por 5 días, otros les quitan la identificación, les quitan el celular a veces y se quedan sin nada y echados. Entonces,
Bueno,
ah,
Sandra,
bueno, sí,
Sandra, ¿me escucha?
sí, sí te escucho.
Ah,
Hola,
ya me llegó
disculpa,
un
es que no te
poquito de
puede
señal
oír por un
aquí, ¿sabes?
momento, se te cortó el audio. Pero bueno, parte de esas organizaciones es una organización que se llama Mis Redes Internacional, FUE, que es una organización que está basada aquí en los Estados Unidos, pero también en Ecuador, y otras organizaciones para de verdad apoyar no nada más a José, pero como dije, a otras personas que han sido deportadas y dejadas sin nada y han enfrentado mucho abuso en el proceso de ser detenido y deportado por los Estados Unidos. Entonces, nuestra llamada a este día de 1 de mayo mañana es de verdad que los trabajadores migrantes y nuestras comunidades de verdad entran en la lucha contra esos ataques fascistas. Entonces, estamos pidiendo nuestras peticiones o demandas son un paro a las deportaciones, un fin al fascismo y un paro al neofascista a políticas y también un fin a la migración forzada y no a la intervención de los Estados Unidos en nuestros países de origen y que la verdad es que los Estados Unidos se salga de todas partes. No tiene razón de estar en otros países ni estar militarizando a todas partes con tanta agresión. Ah, y también estamos pidiendo que de verdad haya apoyo para vivienda, la salud y la educación también. Entonces se compartió el Linktree de José. Ahí te puedes unir a la campaña. También puedes donar para apoyar a José, quien después de experimentar todo lo que experimentó, está todavía batallando con encontrar trabajo, con pagar los medicamentos y los exámenes que necesita para de verdad recuperar después de la tortura que experimentó. Y también recibir actualizaciones sobre la campaña y lo que estamos haciendo para pedir justicia. Entonces, les animo a que vayan a ese enlace para aprender más sobre él, firmar la petición y donar tu tiempo y cualquier recursos que tienes para la campaña. Am, y también tenemos, ok, última cosa. También IMA en los Estados Unidos tiene a nivel nacional una conferencia política que me siento muy afortunada. Voy a apoyar con la planificación porque va a ser aquí en Seattle, Washington. Y es el 30 y 31 de agosto. Y todos en la llamada que están en los Estados Unidos y pueden venir están invitados. Y esto es antes de nuestra conferencia y asamblea global de IMA, que va a ser en Nepal en octubre. Entonces, estamos muy felices de anunciar eso y yo puedo compartir los enlaces para que aprendas más en el chat. Y la verdad, muchas gracias por tenernos hoy. Y muchas gracias, José, por estar en la llamada y por poder compartir tu historia. Gracias.
That was such a powerful sharing. We're sorry that we lost Jose at the end there, but thank you so much to both Cassandra and Jose for sharing your time with us, your story, and probably limited electricity even for Jose where you are. I think your story just shows so much about the full range or the full cycle of what happens in the process of forced migration, of people being forced to leave their homelands because of imperialism, because of the economic domination of the US over other countries, because of whether it's direct colonization, whether it's war and militarism, whether it's sanctions on a country that uh, puts it in the grips of poverty, whether it's militarization. All of these things force people to flee in order to survive. And when they flee and they come to places like the United States, they again face exploitation by the system, face repression by the system. And then in the case of Jose, some of the most extreme forms of repression against someone who was contributing to his community. So we really just take so much from your story and your courage to share, and for Capybara and Ima in continuing the fight for justice for Jose and justice for all migrants and workers. Thank you. We're going to move on to our next speaker, who, again, I think the struggle in Puerto Rico brings all those elements together again. We're talking about colonization. We're talking about the exploitation of land and the people for the benefit of imperialism. We're talking about war and militarism. Bringing it all together, I'd like to call Bicho with Hoopy to share. Bicho, you have the floor.
Okie dokie. What up, y'all? My name is Bicho. I am the national chairperson of Juventud Unida por la Independencia. We are a grassroots mass organization who educates, organizes, and mobilizes Puerto Rican youth and students and their allies for a anti-imperialist, independent, and socialist Puerto Rico. We have members around the country, and today I'm going to tell you a little bit about Puerto Rico and a very important issue that a lot of the Puerto Rican masses are agitated by and upset at. It's called Project Ascensia. But before I start, I'm going to give you a very brief overview of Puerto Rican history. So I'm just going to read this slide real quick. Now I'm playing. So Puerto Rico is the oldest colony in the world. We were occupied by the United States on July 25th, 1898. We are an archipelago with 78 municipalities and 143 different islands. In 1917, we were imposed with the Jones Act, which gave Puerto Ricans U.S. citizenship, which allowed Puerto Ricans to be able to fight in the U.S. imperialist wars. More recently, in 2016, President Obama signed the Promesa bill. Promesa is a law that enacted the Fiscal Control Board of Puerto Rico, which is an unelected, undemocratic board that makes all of the financial decisions in Puerto Rico. This includes closing down hospitals, closing down schools, installing a privatized electric grid system, and cutting pensions, among many other things. Finally, on the right-hand side, you'll see a picture of Governor Jennifer Gonzalez. She was elected for her term this past November. She is the Republican candidate of Puerto Rico. She's very close with, as you can see, Netanyahu, with President Trump. She has policies that are really seeking out to privatize land in Puerto Rico. For those who don't know, the PNP, the Partido Nuevo Progresista, or the New Progressive Party, is the right wing, the Republican political party in Puerto Rico who advocates for statehood. So, what is Esencia? Esencia is a $2 billion project seeking to convert over 2,000 acres of land in Cabo Rojo, which is located on the southwest side of the main Puerto Rican island, into a luxury residential and hotel resort. Back in May of 2024, developing firms Rubin Brothers and Three Wheels Capital unveiled their plans for Esencia, a $2 billion planned community in Boquerón Bay and Cabo Rojo, which would take 7 to 10 years to complete. According to the proposed plan for Esencia, here we can see just how much land would be occupied and how much of the beachfront would be stolen. 3 miles of beachfront will be stolen, and 2,000 acres of land will be taken in order to develop 200 permanent residencies, 500 employee houses, which will likely bring foreign employees to work, 3 golf courses, 2 commercial centers or shopping malls, where one of them will have a museum where Puerto Rican archaeological history will be displayed to purchase, and 2 luxury hotels, the Mandarin Hotel and the Rosewood Hotel. So who's behind this project? Three Wheels Capital, which is an entrepreneurial real estate investment and development company. The Rubin Brothers, which is a British investment firm The Reuben brothers were actually declared to be the third richest family in the UK in 2024 with over $20 billion in wealth. Then there's Alvarez, Diaz, and Villalon, which is the architecture firm they're the architecture firm contracted for this project. They have designed projects in New York, Florida, Panama, the Dominican Republic, Oman, Venezuela, and Puerto Rico. So this project is a colonial project, right? And so there's connections to Jennifer Gonzalez, the governor, and also to the United States because the United States owns Puerto Rico. In 2024, during Jennifer Gonzalez's campaign for governorship, she held a fundraising event, and one of the hosting groups was the architecture firm, Villalon and sorry, I'm losing my notes. Alvarez, Diaz, and Villalon. This project was also granted by the Gonzalez administration $497 million in tax exemptions. The same amount of money was also taken out of the public university budget, which is going to cause many public schools to close. As we can see from this slide, there's a lot of environmental impacts of this project. Since the project was proposed, there has been a major opposition from community members, environmentalists, and local leaders who argue that it poses a significant environmental risk to more than 2,000 acres of land designated as a critical habitat for vulnerable and endangered species. They claim that this project isn't going to have a negative impact and that they've designated 75% of the land to be green area. However, that green area includes the 3 golf courses that they're trying to build, and golf courses require a lot of maintenance to exist. However, so regardless of what people who want Esencia say, construction in the protected areas endangers Cabo Rojo's unique ecosystems. So what has been the response? Folks in Cabo Rojo have not taken this lying down. They have been organizing very actively since May of 2024. They've held public hearings where over 200 people attended and voiced their opposition to the project. They also held, in the diaspora in New York, we had a banner drop and a sit-in at the Mandarin Hotel in New York City. Also on the 21st, so last week, there was a press conference in front of the Department of Environmental Resources, to say no Esencia, to demand that they not support the project. And a coalition has been formed in Cabo Rojo, to fight against the project. So in summary, the goal of Proyecto Esencia is clear, wants to create a paradise in the Caribbean for wealthy foreigners at the expense of the land and the Puerto Rican people. This is a blatant example of settler colonialism in Puerto Rico. It is a blueprint for other settlements in the entire archipelago, and there's others like Moncayo and Fajardo. There's a settlement being planned in Vieques. The goal of this project is to not provide housing or goods to the native people there, but to create space for foreigners to come to Puerto Rico by getting rid of the people that live there now. So some calls to actions. In the chat, there should be a link to a petition that you can sign to support the No Esencia campaign. I'm also going to link the information that's on the screen. The website to Alvarez, Diaz, and Villalon should also be put into the chat. You can call them, their firm in Puerto Rico, and I would like for everybody here to take some time tomorrow, if you can, to call the firm and say No Esencia and just hang that shit up. Is there anything else I want to say? No, that's it. Thanks y'all, ILPS, for having us. Free Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico not for sale. From Puerto Rico to Palestine, occupation is a crime. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you so much, Bicho. Hell yeah. Free Puerto Rico. Well, everyone in attendance, let's make sure to yell that loud and clear. Yeah, thank you so much. I think your sharing, again, really highlighted how all of the different issues we've been discussing today really come together. We really see in Puerto Rico the expansion of direct colonial domination, of direct displacement, of economic dominance, which the US exerts all for the purpose of enriching those in power. The situation in Puerto Rico really highlights how the profits of corporations is prioritized over the lives of the people. We see how the US utilizes all means at its disposal to exert this dominance. This is one expression of the bigger issue even around the world today. Puerto Rico is one example of this trend in this moment when the US is facing a decline and a crisis in its economic and political hold on the world. And as a response, it's lashing out. And this is expressed in the different economic policies, the expansion of direct colonial rule, like in the case of Puerto Rico, the collaboration with different puppet governments, and so on. Under Trump, we have seen all manner of economic maneuvers. We've seen these quote unquote protectionist policies that are really in the interests of US big business. And we see economic attacks used to enhance the ability of these corporations to exploit the people and in order to maintain or try to maintain this US dominance. But aside from these different forms of economic and political dominance, we know that the US resorts to utilizing military strength in order to back its efforts in asserting its economic and political dominance. It uses the expansion of the war machine as the arm of the US in backing this and the expression of the state internationally. And among the networks of that are part of the US military system, we know that NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, is the largest US-led military alliance and one of the main arms by which the US is expanding its military control over the world. And despite its name, it's not limited to Europe, but in fact impacts the people in all parts of the world. As I hope many here are aware, just last year, hundreds across the country and many of us in attendance today mobilized against the NATO summit in DC to expose the very war provocations, to expose the continued threat it expresses to our homelands, and to expose the ways that the people are being neglected or even directly attacked while the war machine continues to expand. For today, I want to invite our next and closing speaker from Resist NATO, Dayton, who will share about how that fight against US-led war is continuing today.
Hello, everyone. My name is Liz. I'm out of Dayton, Ohio. And I've been given the opportunity tonight to speak on the NATO Spring Parliamentary Assembly happening here in the city of Dayton at the end of next month, and what the locals and our neighbors plan to do in response to it. The Resist NATO in Dayton Coalition, which consists of members of ILPS, Freedom Road Socialist Organization, Cleveland United Against War, Resist NATO Coalition, Detroit Anti-War Committee, and Palestine Solidarity Grand Rapids, have organized a virtual political education teach-in happening next week on Zoom. We've also planned a rally and march for the 24th within sight and sound of the NATO village. Now, this village, as they're calling it, consists of several blocks closed off from the rest of the city. It will be disturbing local businesses, city traffic, and has already upended the lives of citizens, especially for the members of our unhoused community who are being pushed out of the areas they typically spend time in downtown. We must resist NATO in Dayton, not only because of the local implications, but also because of the role NATO plays in imperialism and war profiteering worldwide. Now, I'm not here to give you a history lesson on NATO. I think we all know. My introduction really spoke on it, and as we all know, it's been an issue, and we must act against it. But really, I'm here to invite you all to please join us on the 4th of May virtually to learn more about NATO's history in Dayton specifically. I also invite anyone who could make it out to Ohio to our in-person rally in March on May 24th in Dayton. There should be links being shared in the chat. regarding those, and the link to our Instagram, where you can find more information and updates. Thanks so much for having me here.
Thank you so much, Liz. Yes, please join those events. And especially if you're in the Midwest, please join the actions at the end of May as we confront the one of the main expressions of US-led war. Sorry if that was loud. Thank you so much, Liz. That actually concludes our run of wonderful speakers today. And we'll be moving toward the end of our program today. But as we close out, I just wanted to ask folks in attendance to share one more time in the chat, what fights are you all waging right now in your communities, whether they were covered today or not. We want to give some space for that. And in closing, I want to go back to the title of the event today, 100 Days of Trump, 100 Days of Resistance. As every single speaker today shared, we saw all of the ways that the people are fighting back. And in fact, in the title, I want to place more emphasis on the resistance part, because as all these speakers highlighted very well, the solution to the rising attacks is to organize more boldly, more fiercely, and with more people. And we all have a very important task on our hands. We have the task of advancing our respective movements wherever they express themselves. We have the task of building up our fights wherever they express themselves. We have the task of taking up the issues of our community more resolutely and more boldly than ever, whether that is defense of our homelands, whether that is the struggle in our workplaces, whether that is protecting our communities. These fights are all part of a common struggle. And what I also want to emphasize is that despite the fact that we had such a wonderful and wide range of speakers who were covering all of the different components and expressions of these fights, what was shared today is just one snapshot of the vast mass movement of people, which expands far beyond what can be captured in a single event, far beyond what could be shared in one program. And I hope that that emboldens us more, because there are so many more fights that we have to wage, more organizations that we have to bring together, and more communities that can be raised up to see themselves as the makers of history and the makers of change, not as victims of attack, and not as those who are just destined to struggle, but they are destined to struggle to build a better world. And so wage these fights, advance those struggles, but now is also the time of solidarity. And solidarity is really expressed through the ways that we bring these everyday fights of the people together in common struggle to address our shared issues that we face and against our shared enemy. And so I reiterate the point we tried to make at the beginning of the conversation today, at the beginning of the event, why we came together. All of these fights have their particular aspects, but we are not just waging a struggle in one neighborhood or a fight in one campus or waging a fight against any given particular employer alone, but really, in fact, we are facing a struggle against the system itself, the system that allows the people to suffer under crisis, the system that allows for the rising attacks that we see today. And we need to elevate the struggles beyond just every local expression in particular fight, and actually bring them together to advance to new and greater heights. And so moving forward from this event, this is just, again, a snapshot. And I hope that we really take up our role in drawing together more people who can be won over, building up our organized strength, advancing our respective movements, and building more solidarity as we address our common interests, and also as we advance the international struggle against imperialism, which is the underlying source of all of these problems. And we really remember that every single one of these advances in the struggle advances the interest of the whole of the people. But we are more effective when we are able to coordinate these fights together and bring them together in conversations like this, where we can learn lessons from each other, but also most importantly, in the streets where the fights are being waged, in our communities where the fights are being waged, and in our workplaces. And lastly, what I want to share with folks before I pass it on to Rhonda to close us out Do not limit the struggle to just defending our interests and defending ourselves against the attacks. But look beyond just the defense and fight for a future where we don't have to defend ourselves, because the people are the ones who are in charge. The people are the ones who determine their destiny, and we actually have a world where we can live happy, just, and fulfilling lives, free from exploitation and oppression. So thank you all, and there's going to continue to be sharings in the chat, so please take a look at those, and I'll pass it to Rhonda to close us out.
Thank you, Nusha. So one of the beautiful things about the International League of People Struggle, ILPS, is that we give you a vehicle to bring these struggles together. And we have this alliance that brings together organizations around the world, here in the US, fighting on many different issues and concerns. Like Nusha said, we got a snapshot of that tonight. Many of the people on this call who shared are members, allies, folks that we struggle in the streets with you side by side. We struggle in the workplaces side by side with you, on campuses side by side with you, but we see it as a shared fight. And so we are asking you to join us in our fight, in joining us in waging this resistance. And concretely, you can do that by signing on to our campaigns. In the chat, we'd like to share with you how you can sign up and be part of our People Over Profit campaign and our Defend People's Struggle campaign. This is a way where we'll bring together organizations, members, as well as non-members of ILPS who are waging these fights to learn from each other, to share more about targets, to elevate your struggles so they aren't just isolated in one community or campus, but can actually take on a countrywide form when appropriate. By linking all of these fights together, we build stronger, we expand, we make it mass, and then we can deal blows to the imperialist system and fight for a future where, like Nusha said, we don't have to continue fighting just for survival. So please do sign up, be part of the campaigns. We hope to see you in the streets. We hope to see you at a future ILPS meeting, a future online rally, and a future where we're victorious, where we win our freedom and we liberate ourselves from this imperialist beast. So with that, I want to say thank you all today and see you out on May Day.